Hi. So today I want to talk about this concept of JavaScript hoisting. I've seen that. So this question is asked a lot in interviews if you're applying as a JavaScript developer, whether it's as a backend position, as a front end, or just as a JavaScript developer. And people who are just learning out JavaScript right now as newbies, I when I started JavaScript hoisting seemed a bit of a complicated topic for me. So what I've understood so far about hoisting, I've tried to dumb it down and make it simpler so that it's easier for other people to understand who are just starting out with JavaScript. I hope this video benefits you in any way, so I'll just jump right to it. Uh, Now, normally, if what you'd expect for your JavaScript code to when it compiles is it'll just like read line by line and just whatever the execution it gets, it'll just like print it out, whatever it is that you want to output. But there's some quirks with JavaScript. One of them happens to be hoisting. So let's talk about it. So the normal flow of your so for JavaScript, your code needs to compile before it can be interpreted. And while uh, it gets compiled, it needs to the compiler needs to know all of the variables that are going to be used in your code base. So based on that rule, if you have a function like var name is equal to Adeel, var profession is equal to developer, and console.log name plus profession. And when I do this, it's going to print out. Maybe I can do like this. So it's going to print out this. But what goes behind the scene, it's going to happen something like this. So var name, var profession, and then it's going to do something like, or I should maybe I should just like comment this out for now, and maybe copy this. And maybe do this. So this is, and maybe this should be at the top. So you write something like this, but when your compiler is compiling your code, it like breaks it down into different parts. So your declaration and your definition are two different things for your compiler. It's not going to be the same thing. So what it does is it's going to like find all of your variables and like put it at the top of the scope of a certain function. I'll talk about that a bit later, the scope of function. But right now, what you have to like understand is all your variables will be defined, will be declared at the top and then defined wherever in the code they're supposed to be defined at. So this code right here gets defined something like this, which so var name is at as of this moment undefined. This is undefined, and then the name is assigned the value, profession is assigned a value, and so if we run this code, JS output so JSPin does this, but right now it should just say undefined, or maybe I should just convert this into a string as well. Might as well. So, anyways, so you get the idea. Undefined plus undefined. JSPin has its own quirks. So based on that logic, what do you think the output for this code should be? I'll just stop for a second. Any guesses? Well, the output for this code is going to be something like 2. So what's happening here? What's happening here is all of your variable declarations goes at the top, and the your definition comes a bit down, and this is what's happening. So normally if uh this wasn't here, and any person who was new to JavaScript and was looking at this code, what they would expect is some kind of error, some kind of like syntax error, because this thing doesn't make sense that you're declaring it later on, you're defining it later on, but you're like declaring the value very initially. And people said that it's going to like output something bizarre like without this. So what people would probably say is also one more quirk. If your variable is not defined by default, this is going to be a Windows object, which is a separate topic for separate there. But what people would assume is that this would print out, this would just give an error because it doesn't make sense. It's not what we were taught while we were studying engineering basic C++ and Java. JavaScript is different, and you guys need to make peace with that. It's different and it's fun. So when your compiler like goes through these code, it converts it into this thing, and the output is it's going to be 2 for now. Let's spice this up a little bit. I talked about scopes. It's going to be about after my next example. What do you think the output for this is going to be? I'm going to wait like 2-3 seconds. Think on it. What do you guys say the output is going to be right now? Any guesses? Any? So let's break this down a little bit more. You write this, but what the compiler sees is it's going to move all of your variable declarations at the top, and then whatever your normal flow is, and then a is equal to 2. So now if you look at this code, right now this is undefined. It doesn't have a value, you know, because JavaScript needs to know all of the variables that are being used in a certain piece of code before it can, do its magic with its compilation. So you write something like this, and the compiler converts into something like this. This entire idea is basically called hoisting, moving all of your variable declarations at the top and also your functions, which comes a little bit later on in this video with a bit of scope as well. So yeah, the output for this is going to be undefined. I'll probably do something like this, where you type what the machine does. Where you type what the machine does. And probably this entire code snippet is going to be available in the description below if you want to like play with this yourself. Okay, so what you type what the machine does. All right, one example, two example, three example, and now I'll just paste them up together. So we're coming up with more better examples. What do you think the output for this is going to be? I'll like wait for like 2-3 seconds. Any guesses? 1, 2, 3. Let's go with the output. Undefined. So we type and what the machine does. So previously I talked about that all of your variable declarations go at the top, but there's something that goes on top of those variable declarations. Those are your function definitions. So we typed here, and this is something that happened. So foo function foo was here, and then so it moved top at the scope function itself, and if there was some kind of like variable here, variable result is equal to 1, I don't know, and then you were doing something like console.log result. This is what would have been happening here. Result is equal to 1 console.log result. Now inside this function, so everything everything that this hoisting does, it does in its own scope. So we have our own main scope, our root scope. This entire thing is our root scope, and then inside every function, it has its own scope. So this is a separate scope on its own. This will have its own like nested rule set. So what happens here is, yeah, you guessed it right, variable a, yep, which is undefined at the moment right now, comes for, and then we just try to like console.log a, which is still undefined, and then we do the declaration. So let's see if our results match. Clear this out. Undefined and 1. This is what you typed here. And this is what the machine was doing actually. Let's see. Okay. So why didn't it print out the undefined? Oh, sorry. We forgot to call the function. So undefined 1, undefined and 1. We typed here and what the machine did. See, the compiler has to like reorder stuff in order for it to make sense. It's not as smart as we are, apparently. All right, that brings us to our final example. Where you type and maybe console.log hello. Oh shit, this was supposed to be a secret. But pretend you guys didn't see that. What do you think the output is going to be? Since you already saw that, I'm just going to go with that and then I'll explain what is happening here. This is going to be a type error. Yes, you guessed it right. So what is happening here? These were our functions. See, and this is a variable here right now. So what's happening here? We type. I'm not supposed to see that. What the machine does. All right. So this is a variable declaration, right? All of our variables go at the top, which is undefined right now. And then we call our function. And then wherever our stuff was happening, so foo is equal to function bar console.log hello. So what is happening here? Foo is undefined right now, and we just invoke that function. We just invoke that undefined thing. And right now the value is undefined, and when we invoke it as a function, it gives us as a type error because it does not know what the type is. We have not defined a value. It's not a string, it's not a number, it's not a function. The compiler doesn't know. It's not as smart as we are, I don't know. So this is going to print us a not a it's not going to say a reference error, but it's going to say a type error because it does not know what the type is. And that brings us to what hoisting is. I'm just going to like reorder it so I can at some point also upload this on a GitHub example. All right. And then I'm going to do, all right, hash example 1, example 2. This is 1. This is not an exclamation mark. And this is example number 3. Example number 4. Wow, that's a lot of examples. We type what the machine does. And example number 5. Yep, 5 examples. And I hope that you guys have an idea about what hoisting is. And hopefully this was helpful to you. I'll also attach a very good article from my one of my favorite books, which is called You Don't Know JS, which talks all of this what I just talked about, but with a lot more details. So if you guys want to read that, just check the link in the description below. And hopefully this was fun for you guys. Bye.